I'm not a professional, but I play one on YouTube. So I grab some fertilizer out of the bag, about 2 tablespoons. I'll find the bottom of the hole and then just let it go down there instead of lifting the plant on and spreading around. But it's called caliper quote. It's called caliber quote. It's called caliber coat. There's bigger and smaller granulars, so granules, and you don't know. Hey, welcome back to the channel. I know enough to be dangerous farm. My name is Rob, and as you can see, we're back in the garden. It's been 3 weeks since we planted the corn, and it's about what I call hick high. It's about 5 feet tall right now. Pretty impressive for 3 weeks in the ground, but we had a lot of heat, and I have irrigation in here, so corn loves that. You can also see the tomatoes. Last video, I tied up the bottom. Well, they were about foot high. I tied up the bottom, and I said I'd probably have to do this one more time, and I will have to do it one more time. They're about 4 foot tall, and as you can see, they're laying down. So I want to bring them up. So I'll just do the same thing, and I'll just tie them to the cattle panel. I won't show you guys that because it's just the same process as last time. I have to tie up the beans again. I'll tie the beans up so we can they can grow a little bit better, produce a little bit heavier, and you can harvest them easier. So the one thing I wanted to show you in the garden, one of my videos, I obviously you can see the weed fabric down, and I made a video of how I do the circles. I cut with a little propane torch, and you're probably thinking, well, geez, how do you fertilize those during the season if they need it with the little circles and the plants are 4 or 5 times the circles? I'm glad you asked. I use this. It's a particular funnel that we sell here. If you'd be interested in one, contact me. So what I do is I take my precision planter glove, and strangely enough, the palm of my hand is 2 tablespoons. And how I know that is I take fertilizer. When you get, I'm not a professional, but I play one on YouTube. So I grab some fertilizer out of the bag, about 2 tablespoons. I'll find the bottom of the hole and then just let it go down there instead of lifting the plant on and spreading around. And I use this a lot in the greenhouse with our containerized product also, and I'll show you that in a second. So the fertilizer we're using, and I use this everywhere. I am not a sponsor, and what it is, it's a knockoff. I'm not going to say the name brand, but it rhymes with Ozma. I wish I had a code on. Get it? If you get it, you get it. So it's a triple 14. What it is it's called a nursery mix, and it has the MP and K, and it has like 6% sulfur in it. So watch the pH on your whatever you're using it on. If you use it, watch the pH on that. So, but it does have the sulfur, which has some benefits too, but it also has a drawback. It'll lower your pH. Here's what it looks like. Little round consistent pellets. Not sure what the blue is, but maybe it's their trademark. If you want to know who carries this, reach out to me and I'll let you know. I'm not a sponsor, so I don't really want to advertise. So it's an informational page, analysis, what it is, blah blah blah. What to do, what not to do, but it also has container ratings, which is helpful if you have a nursery. So it does have gallons, 2 gallons, and square footage and how much you're supposed to use. So it's like 2 tablespoons what you're supposed to use on 1 trade gallon plant. So that's what I use. And another good benefit of this, it's very consistent. Some fertilizer, and you don't know, what if you're getting a consistent spread on everything. So I like this product. One, it's slow release. It does have different ratings per temperature. Like if it's 76 degrees, it says 4 months. Where I live, I don't need 4 months of growing. I need 3 months. And what I need it in is specifically the corn. So I watch the corn, basically the bottom part of the corn. If it starts cannibalizing itself, that's when I'll put another, it might call it a top dress fertilizer, but I watch the corn pretty closely to watch your corn and watch the bottom of your corn. It'll tell you what it needs or what it's doing or what's happening, okay? Pro tip. So to do a top dress on this, because I have the weed fabric, if I just broadcast the top dress, it would just go all over the place, and it's on a hill, and it would roll down the weed fabric, and most of it would collect on the bottom, and you know the bottom rows would be going crazy, and the top row still be starving and cannibalizing itself. So what I'll do is I'll take this little funnel and the little 8-inch burn holes we put for each individual corn kernel, which was a pain in the butt when we did it, but now that it's done, we'll use that fabric year after year and put the corn, or at least use the fabric where the corn's going to go every year. We'll probably swap it. We'll grow corn down there one more year and then swap it up here. It's good for crop rotation, so you don't get any pests. It's a good way to keep the pests down. It's crop rotation and no chemicals. So what we'll do is I'll go to each little hole that I made for the corn seed and then drop my 2 tablespoons ish, maybe a little lighter on corn, but the containers are going to get 2 tablespoons because that's exactly how big the palm of my hand is. So I can show you that process here. So specifically, the corn is nice and healthy, but specifically with the corn, you can see the little holes in the fabric. Now, if I wanted to try to get fertilizer in one of those holes, I would have to bend over, and it's not too bad on the outside, but the inside rows would be a pain in the butt. Bend over and then put fertilizer in each one, or I could do this, or I could do this, and there's no waste. Put it right where the hole is, line up your funnel, and it all goes right where it's supposed to. And anything extra on the fabric will leach into the soil, but most of it is around the plant where it needs to go. And as far as cost difference between the name brand, rhymes with Ozma, and I wish I had a coat on, and the stuff I use, it's half price. It's half the price. It works just as good as the name brand. The name brand might have a little more longevity of, maybe it might go 4 months, but 3.5 months is all I need to feed what we have going on in the garden every year. And in the greenhouse, I don't want to be pushing my plants any longer than that with a lot of nitrogen. We push the plants in the spring and early summer with a blast of fertilizer and the growing lights we have. After that, end of August, we want it to starting to harden off and get ready for our winter. So let's go look at this process in the greenhouse. Here's a bird's eye view. Everything is looking awesome. Even the marigolds are loving it this year. So welcome back. So we're in the greenhouse, and I just potted these up. There's like 62 of these green honey locusts. They're thornless honey locusts, and we grew these from seed. These were last year's crop. We grew them in our plug trays, and so this is when we start to pot up last year's crop into saleable 1 gallon or 2 gallon, depending on what we're going to do with them. Saleable for next year. So what we'll do is we'll have these grow through these containers, and they have them another month, maybe 2 months of growing, so they'll fill out the containers, and then we'll sell them next year, either our farm stand or we'll sell them to local garden centers to sell. So here's our funnel, and we put a slight modification on this, and this little gizmo, when the fertilizer comes out of here, it kind of scatters it, so it's like scattered all over the container instead of just a clump right on the tree trunk. Even in the garden, you don't want it right on the tree trunk. You want it, you know, scattered around. It's okay if it's in a pile. Preferably have it scattered around, but if it's okay, it's okay if it's in a pile, but not on the trunk of the plant. Don't do that. But I did some of these so I don't bore you with, you know, fertilizing plants. But here's my 2 tablespoons of fertilizer, slow release fertilizer, and here's my little trusty gizmo. Just put it over, and it spreads it right on in the container where I need it. If it's getting Here's another angle. Pick it up a little bit. See, with this little gizmo, I can put this right on the dirt, and then it scatters it all over the place. Soil, not dirt. So just a little pro tip, I use one of these funnels. I do a little bit of a modification. There's got some little fingers down there that spread fertilizer around a little bit. Just a couple little tricks that I do around our tree farm to, one, be efficient with your fertilizer, and two, you know, the professional version of this, which I don't have 100 greenhouses or thousands of acres to fertilize. In the fields, I'm throwing the fertilizer. Usually my mix, I did a video on that, and I do the feed and chicken method. You know, I do 20 acres of trees like that, so don't tell me I'm only doing 100 or 200 trees like that. It does take a little time, but it's a very efficient way to apply your fertilizer. And I'm looking at every plant for pests, problems, you know, disease, any of that. You know, I'm catching those problems with little IPM, catching those problems, or seeing the signs before they're a problem, and I got to go through the whole field and spray, you know, 5 acres with some sort of insecticide or fungicide or whatever the problem is. So that's how I, you know, keep track of my pest problem. Like these won't go in the field unless they're in this container for 2 or 3 years. We can't sell them. I can't sell them to somebody. Then they'll go into the field, but we're primarily in the field as far as evergreens. So back to this little gizmo, you know, you can buy something similar to this with an automation and calibration and all that stuff. Or you can, you know, measure each one. When I'm doing a lot of these, I'll have a little pail that goes on my stomach here, and I just scoop out like that. You can do that too, but I've found that I'm very close to just doing the handful method. I can feel how much is in there, and I put it in there. Okay, if you don't like it, you don't like it. I like this product. Like I said, I'm not a sponsor. I like the slow release fertilizer. It gives it a little boomp, and then it constantly feeds. That's what we did with our mums, and they look awesome. And I don't think, maybe just before bloom, I'll hit them with some liquid, but I don't think I'm going to fertilize them again. So I did that when they were little teeny tiny things on the bench. I fertilized them, and they went out where they got to go. Like these trees, this bench here got the fertilizer. This bench didn't, and I can see the difference in the color and the height. But I don't have really a good method to fertilize plug trays, so I just kind of scattered it over and try to make it even. But not a good way to fertilize that way, because you're going to get some that's too much and not enough. But these quick fire hydrangea, they got fertilized with the old funnel, and they're doing awesome. These were made from cuttings last year. We'll sell them next spring. So thanks for joining me today. I hope I gave you a couple pointers of, you know, garden stuff. And in the garden too, we walk through the garden every night. And now we're harvesting zucchini and squash like that. But it's looking for signs and symptoms of a problem. So we don't have a problem. So in the garden, if we see a problem on one plant, we'll probably yank the plant out and get it out of there. Basically, kind of a quarantine method. In the greenhouse like this, I don't have a lot of the same variety in the same block. So if there is a problem, we can handle it. In the field, you know, I break up and we kind of interplant. I don't know if I'm sold on that. I don't know. Interplanting is a good, efficient way to manage your land. And if you do have a pest in one of your fir, it doesn't spread to all of them before you can catch it. But I'm in the fields in the spring quite a bit. In the summer, not so much. Probably twice in the summer, just for the mowing. And in the summertime, that's usually enough to catch a problem, because the springtime is when you start getting the pests and the disease. More disease in the spring than pests. What we have around here, but you know, between planting and fertilizing and trimming and all that stuff, I'm in the fields a lot right up until the midsummer, and then the rest of the summer I'm in there a couple times. I'll bebop around with the three-wheeler, and yep, I said three-wheeler, not four-wheeler. I'm old school, and doing the mowing. And you can pick out problems in your field just by seeing mostly discoloration. But that's how we fertilize our containerized stock, and then we'll push this out the door next year. Thanks for joining me, and always take care.